All right, here we go. Quiet! Roll 'em!
Tolkien was directed by Dom Kadukowski and stars Nicholas Hoult and Lily Collins, and is the biopic movie of the famous author J.R.R. Tolkien, who of course wrote The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and I know for sure different other books, but all I know he wrote those two famous books. And of course, then we got the Peter Jackson movies, which I love. I love the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I love those movies. The Hobbit I like too. It was fine. It wasn't as great as Lord of the Rings, but it was still good. So I was actually excited to see the movie talking about behind the man who wrote those books and how he came up with everything. How did he get his ideas? You know, the whole writing process of everything. So I was excited to see, you know, the man of life. And plus all my friends that are such a big fans, they always say, oh, the books are so great. The books are so great. So I was actually excited now to see what was this man's life, you know, how this whole affect his life with all the books and everything. And to be honest, we never really do get to see that. This movie is actually disappointing because you never actually really get to see him do that. Now the movie starts off with him, of course, as a young boy, and then to a teenager, and him as an adult. This movie had this weird storytelling of jump point. You know, it goes for him being at war, and then him being back a boy, then back at war. It jumps back and forth with the timeline for the first and second act, in which I think was actually unnecessary. Like all this jumping back and forth to cuts was actually not a good choice. I would rather keep it chronologically, like have him as a boy, growing up, and then at war, you know, and then later on. But like they keep jumping back and forth, what doesn't add to the movie. It looks like another war movie you would see. You know, I'm not saying nothing bad about this man. I don't know if this was really his life, but like the way they tell his story, it doesn't add much to it, and it's just they just have some scenes for him at war and cut back to it. Oh, now you know what that was he just said a few minutes ago, because they showed that scene from his childhood. My main like probably grudge, what I would say with this movie is like I said before, you never get to really see the things you wanted to see. Like I'm sorry to say this, but this are mini spoilers, but like you never get to see him write the books that he was famous for. Like nothing. It's always in the background, or always some like 5-second or 10-second shots of him drawing something, and that's it. Like we never get to see him create the Elvis language. It's just a one line thrown in the movie where it's like, oh, as a kid I loved the language so much I invented my own language. I was like, cool, great. I would like to see that. This is the main problem. Like all the stuff you want to see, all the stuff you think you're going to see in this movie, you're not going to see. It's always in the background, push back, only 10 seconds on it, and then it's focused more on other stuff. And I was just like, why? That's very disappointing, because it's like going to a concert and the band doesn't play, it just sits down and talks about, you know, the history that they had, or talking about the songs they're actually going to play. I was like, cool, that's interesting, but can you play? It's like, you know, it's this thing going out throughout the whole movie. I was thinking like, okay, we have to have him this if he wrote the books later on in life, but then it's like, oh, what? That's it? Not one. It's just like a couple mentions here, like in the trailer you see a fellowship. It's like that's the closest, and something at the end. The movie ends at this point like, well, you know the rest, you know what happens. I was like, no, that's what I wanted to see. So that was kind of disappointing. And like I said, the jumping back and forth, also the way the romance is built up in this movie is really done poorly, because there is no development. It's like you see them, they like each other, and then they are not really, the romance is never really fleshed out. And this is what this movie really does, which is the main negative of this movie. It skips part that I think would be very important or good for the development of the character, because they skip so much of the love story that at the end you don't really care if they end up together or not, you know. And I also feel like many moviegoers will find the film boring. I don't want to say boring, but like very slow. The first act is kind of okay, but then the second act, and like it isn't until like the middle of the third act, I would say, where the movie like kind of picks up and gets a little more interesting. Like the whole second and the middle of first act is like extremely slow. It takes time with stuff that are really not interesting, I would say, to see. So, and I think that would turn off a lot of moviegoers or people who just became fans just by the Peter Jackson movies. You know, I think really other people who are like more hardcore fans or are like bigger fans of Tolkien, I think they will maybe find the film more enjoyable. But I think that's always normal. If you're a bigger fan of the person's work, I think you will find a little bit more joy in watching the movie. But like to the normal moviegoer, the movie will feel boring at times. And for the majority of the time, especially I was watching, I was just like, it's like, come on, because this movie has so many great things it could show. It could show a man creating his own language, a man creating those great stories. Like, this is what I came to see. And to have this very vague and very pushed back is just extremely disappointing for me. That's like really the problem of the movie. Is like, why would you skip that? Why would you do that? Now the movie does have some good points in the movie, and as Nicholas Hoult, he does give a good performance in the movie. Lily Collins also gives a good performance in the movie, like I said, but just their romance is like skipped, isn't really developed in the movie. The best part of the movie is Tolkien and his three friends, and they create this bond with each other. Now we actually know how actually Tolkien came up with the four main Hobbit characters. It's kind of like him and his three friends. He's kind of like honoring his friends, which actually was cool to see. And that's also, I think, those are the best parts of the movie. Him being with his friends, discussing, you know, what they want to be in life and how their relationship progresses throughout the movie. I think that was really the best part of the movie. The whole rest of it is like kind of sad. It's slow. It takes its time. It's not that interesting like it actually should be. And this movie has really so much potential that it could have been. But there's some really great scenes, like especially with him at war. There's some really great, those really great choice, like great Lord of the Rings and Hobbit. Another cool thing they did in this movie is like the arts, like how they incorporated like him visioning and building kind of this world in when he's at war. That's really done really great. You have some great scenery, you know, like from the Hobbit movies incorporated with war and how he sees things. That was actually done very good. And like before, this movie's okay, but I think it will turn off a lot of movie goers. I think a lot of people will find the movie boring. Like I said, I'm sorry to use that word, but it's just the way it is. I know I felt to a majority of the film, I was just like, the things you think you're gonna see either pushed back or barely or even not at all in the movie. So I'm going to give this movie a 4 out of 10. Yeah, like I said before, this movie is fine. I think maybe if you're a bigger fan of Tolkien, you maybe find it a little bit more enjoyable, but I don't think it's much. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you have a great day, and as always, see you next time.